Tax returns for students in Germany is a very interesting topic as it can lead to hundreds of euros being returned to you based on your expenses as a student in Germany. But many students avoid this topic thinking that it is a big headache. Trust me, it might be a difficult topic, but if you spend just a couple of minutes each year, you can get an average of 1000 euros tax return each year. For students, the tax return can even be in multiples of thousands of euros based on your expenses. Anyone who is single, widowed, or divorced is usually in tax class number 1. For people who are single but are having a child, they are in tax class number 2. Married people or people who are registered officially as a partner are in tax class number 3 if their spouse is earning more than them. People who are married and are earning equally, so both of the partners are working and they are similarly earning, they are usually in tax class number 4. For the combination of tax class number 3, the partner who's earning more is usually in tax class number 3, and people who are doing multiple jobs are classified under tax class number 6. So the main thing here is that if someone is married or has children, their children or their partners have to be in Germany in order for them to be considered in tax class number 3, 4 or 5. For people who are married and their spouses are in another country, they will not be considered in, again, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so the main question is who has to file a tax return. So people who are in tax class number 1 and number 4 combination, if they are married, do not have to submit a tax return. If I'll share the conditions of if later on, but if anyone is in class number 2, 3, 5 or 6, they have to submit a tax return every year. So if you are in tax class number 1 or in tax class number 4 combination, you do not have to submit a tax return, but if you do multiple jobs, then your tax class will change. You will have one job in tax class number 1 or again 4 and the other job will be in tax class number 6. Then you will have to submit a tax return every single year. Again, if you do not have multiple jobs but you receive wage replacement benefits, for example, Arbeitslosengeld, Kurzarbeit, Mutterschaftsgeld, Elterngeld, Krankengeld, Unterhaltsgeld, then you will have to submit a tax return every single year, even if you are in tax class number 1 or 4 combination. So here there's a very big misconception that if you submit a tax return once, you will be obliged to submit it every single year. This is not true. This is incorrect information. I also thought that this was true, but again it is not true. What makes you obliged to file a tax return is changing your conditions which have been mentioned here. For example, if you did multiple jobs in a year or if you got wage replacement benefits within a year. So please keep that in mind. If you submit a tax return and you are not obliged to submit it, then if the Finanzamt thinks that you should submit a tax return, maybe they have flagged you in any of the millions of ways they can flag you, they will send you a letter and then you will have to submit a tax return. So for example, if the Finanzamt flags you, they will send you a letter even if you're not obliged, and then you will have to submit a tax return. Alright, so for obligated tax filers, the deadline is usually the end of July, but because of the pandemic situation, the submission dates have been changed since 2021. So for the year of 2022, you have the 30th of October to submit a tax return. For the year of 2023, you have the 31st of August 2024. For non-obligated filers, which usually most of the students are, you have a time of 4 years to submit a tax return. So in the year of 2023, you will be allowed to submit a tax return for 2022, 2021, 2020 and 2019. So anyone who wants to submit a tax return for 2018 or 17 or 16, unfortunately the time frame has passed away and you cannot submit a tax return for any of the years before 2019 from 2023 onwards. One thing I should mention here is that the obligatory filers deadlines are the mentioned deadlines are only for people who want to submit the tax return on their own. If anyone wants to submit it using a tax consultant, their deadlines are usually an additional year. So if someone wants to submit a tax return for 2022 with the help of a tax consultant, they have usually by the end of July 2024. So please keep that in mind. Alright, who has to pay taxes? Well, the government has set a Grundfreibetrag, which is the basic tax-free allowance each year. So in the year of 2019, 9,168 euros were the tax-free allowance. In the year 2022, this amount was 9,984. Many students might know this as the block amount that you have to submit in the bank account when you're coming as an international student. So if you are not sure what the tax-free amount for that year is, simply take the block amount for that year. An important point here is that solidarity surcharges, income tax and church tax, only these three things are the taxes. Social contributions like pension insurance, health insurance and care insurance are not taxes. So if you submit these contributions, you will not get these amount back when you are getting a tax refund. Okay, so what exactly is a tax return? Some people think that a tax return is the taxes that you pay on specific items. For example, if you bought an 800 euros worth of a laptop, at 19%, the tax for that would be 152 euros. So will you be returned the 152 euros? Some people think that the tax return is the amount that you get for everything. So if you bought an 800 euros laptop, you will get 800 euros. This is again incorrect. What it actually is the reduction of tax burden. So what the government does is takes your gross income, subtracts your studies or work related expenses, and then recalculates your income. And then based on this new income, your taxes are again calculated. I'll explain this with the help of an example. Let's assume someone is earning 45,000 euros per year. So their gross salary would be 3,750 euros. Based on this 45,000 euros salary per year, the income tax would be 6,747 euros. So by the end of the calculations, this person will be getting 2,419 euros after taxes per month. But let's say this person has work or study related costs of 5,000 euros. Now the tax office will calculate, once you submit your tax return, they will calculate your new taxes based on 40,000 euros income. So they will calculate it based on 3,333 euros per month. Now the new calculation for your taxes would be 5,445 euros instead of 6,747 euros. The difference of this amount would be returned to you. So this person who was earning 45,000 with an expense of 5,000 euros will get 1,000 and approximately 400 and something euros back as a tax return. Now here you can see that they had expenses of 5,000 euros, but they are getting an tax return of 1,400 euros. So this is a huge thing that people need to understand. Now looking into the social contributions like unemployment insurance, pension insurance, health insurance or care insurance, these do not get calculated on your tax refund. Please hit the like button if you're getting value from this video and consider subscribing for more. So here you might ask, Essen, I'm a student, I do not earn 45,000 euros. I don't earn more than 10,000 euros. So here you have the calculation for someone who's earning 8,600 euros. So ideally speaking, they do not pay any income tax, any church tax if they are applicable, or any solidarity Zuschlag. The income tax would be zero. But based on your contract, you may be paying a pension insurance, unemployment insurance, and care insurance. The health insurance is obviously paid in different kinds of ways. If you have private insurance or if you have government insurance, we won't calculate this in the income taxes. So if you're earning more than 9,900 euros for 2022, you will be paying some sort of taxes. And if you're earning less than that, ideally, you should not be paying any taxes. But that being said, sometimes based on your contract, you are paying taxes even if you are not earning the higher amount. So to get this amount back, if you have paid any taxes, you need to submit a tax return. And if you did not pay any taxes, you can show your expenses. In any case, you need to show your expenses as a student. For example, the study costs, mobile phone, other details which I'll go into in later slides. But if you show your expenses and if you have not paid any taxes, what happens is that you will get a tax loss carry forward certificate. What this means is that your income was less than the taxable amount, or a portion of your income was less than the taxable amount, and your expenses, which were for studies and job, are higher. That is why you will get this certificate. Now, for example, if you had salary of 8,600 euros in 2020 and you submitted a tax return showing an expense of, let's say, 5,000 euros. Based on some calculations, the finance arm said that 2,000 euros would be returned to you in terms of a tax return, but you did not pay any taxes. So this 2,000 euros would be carried in a tax loss carry forward certificate, which you will be putting in the 2021 tax return. Again, all of the calculations would be put in, and this 2,000 euro certificate would be put in terms of your expenses. So all of these calculations would be done again, and if you are in positive, if you have paid taxes, then the certificate will be used and you will be given a tax return. And if you haven't paid enough taxes, then this cycle will continue forward. As a student, you can carry losses for 7 years. So let's say in the year of 2023, you can carry forward for 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17 and 16. So from 2016 onwards, you can carry forward your losses from 2023. Hopefully this thing is clear that who has to pay taxes. So a couple of things that you need in order to submit a tax return. You'll need your 11-digit tax ID number, which you get when you register in Germany. Some people or some methods of tax return require an additional 13-digit tax number, which usually is not required for many. Then you'll need a bank account where you will be getting the tax refund back, and the Lohnsteuerbescheinigung. This is the salary slip summary that you get when you finish your year or the new year starts. If someone does not have this Lohnsteuerbescheinigung, they will have the salary slips. They can use the salary slips to sum up all of the information and put it in a tax return. In the worst case scenario, if you do not have your Lohnsteuerbescheinigung and you do not have your salary slips, then you will need to contact your HR departments where you worked. If there is no HR department, contact anyone who can give you your salary slip. And if you have no contacts whatsoever, then I would recommend that you contact the finance amt and ask if they have your details. Theoretically speaking, your employer should submit this information to the finance amt. If the finance amt does not have this information, then unfortunately there's no way for you to submit a tax return or at least claim or give information. In that case, please be careful and always provide the correct information in a tax return. Alright, so what are these claimable expenses? Anything that is related to your work and your studies can be claimed. So as a student, any education fee, transportation fee, literature fee, working fee. So in terms of education fee, your semester fee, your university registration fee, if you're in Baden-Württemberg, the 1,500 euros fee, your examination fee, any kind of education fee will be a claimable expense. In terms of transportation costs, any travel that you do from your university, from your home to your university, would be considered in a tax claim. So every single kilometer that you travel from your house to your university would be paid to you as 60 cents or 30 cents per kilometer, and that is only one way. So let's say your university is 10 kilometers away from your home and you travel 10 kilometers on your way to the university and 10 kilometers back to the university per day. So in that one day, you will be just counted as 10 kilometers, which would be 3 euros. So let's assume you traveled for 100 days in the year. So you will be getting a claimable expense of 300 euros based on this 10 kilometer distance and 30 cents per kilometer. However, if you have a library that is separate from your university, let's say your house is 12 kilometers away from your university and your library is 10 kilometers away from your house. So again, you will be able to claim the expenses for the distance traveled to the library. And this distance or the travel would be two ways. So instead of the 30 cents per kilometer, you would be given 30 cents per way. Same goes for seminars and any other study related events. For example, when I was a student, I used to go on an exhibition that was in Düsseldorf. So I used to travel from Baden-Württemberg to Düsseldorf, and theoretically speaking, if anyone is traveling such similar distances, they would be able to claim the ticket for that seminar or the event or the exhibition and the travel cost from your university or from your house to the specific event. Coming to literature and other tools, if you are, usually most of the people here are in engineering, if they buy any special engineering literature or any literature that is relevant to their course, any books, any research papers, anything at all, they can claim that. Any equipment, for example, if you buy any pens, papers, pads, anything similar to that would be claimable. So for people who are doing their thesis or internship, they also need to print out their thesis and internship documents, and they also have to, or most of them have to submit it in terms of a physical book. So any costs related to that would also be claimable as a student. Then comes the internet and phone costs. Smartphone contracts are claimable, but please be careful that if you say that your smartphone contract is 50 euros per month and you're getting the highest internet possible, then the finance arm might not consider your expenses. If it is in a reasonable amount, it would be considered, but again, it depends. What it depends on is the person who's handling your file. Every tax claim is handled by an individual. So some people or some people in different states have different leniencies. So it depends on the person who's handling your file. So coming to the contracts, your smartphone contract, your internet at home, any landline costs belong to this category and you can claim those expenses. Coming to hardware devices, for example, mobile phone, tablets, computers, you can claim these again. But going back to the previous example, if you buy a computer, let's say you buy a expensive gaming computer with the highest end graphics card and the specs are the best in class, you cannot claim this in a tax return because this is not helping you in your education. It might help you out. Let's say if you are in what do you have, for example, if you had any graphics intensive work, for example artificial intelligence, but even then the case would be that this is not assisting you in your education. Your university should be providing you with the resources that you need to do your artificial intelligence programs. So theoretically speaking, costs that are generally lower than 1000 euros are acceptable. If you buy the latest iPhone, let's say 14 Pro Max with the highest end specs, it's round about 2000 euros, and again there's no sense of claiming that because the finance arm will not accept it as a reasonable claim. So please be careful. Even if you want to buy the highest end devices, you can always try to put it in your study expenses, but I would not accept or think that the finance app will accept all of the expenses, at least in the highest end of mobile phones or tablets or something like that. So when it comes to softwares and peripherals, you can buy any kind of software which you require for your studies, any peripherals, mouse, keyboard, stuff like that. For accommodation costs, you cannot claim your main residence rent in an expense. However, if you have two residences, you can claim the expense of the second accommodation in your tax return. That being said, I do not know any international students that have multiple residences, at least in their initial years of being in Germany. Let's say if someone is doing a PhD, then probably I've seen a couple who have multiple residences. But please be careful, and you, as I said, you cannot claim your initial primary accommodation in terms of expenses. Please hit the like button if you're getting value from this video, and consider subscribing for more. Another important point that many students do not know is the relocation cost. If you move cities for the purpose of internship or thesis, you can take advantage of the relocation cost, which is up to 820 euros as an individual and 1640 euros for couples. So if you move cities for your thesis or your internship, you can claim this cost. Some students take loans because they have a lot of burdens. The government will accept only the expenses that are in terms of interest payments as a burden, and not the student loan itself. Let's say if someone took a loan of 5,000 euros and obviously they needed this money, but the government will not accept the 5,000 euros as an expense. They will just say that we will accept your interest payments on that 5,000 euros. Another expense that you can claim is the application costs. Every single application that you send can be claimed as an expense. If you send a physical post, you can claim up to 8.5 euros per physical post. Please always keep receipts for every single thing, especially for these kind of costs. So for any online application, you can get up to 2.5 euros per online application. So this is great. I've seen people who have submitted 150 applications. So theoretically speaking, they can claim 2.5 euros for every single application they send. When someone asks for proof, what you can give is usually if you have submitted 150 applications, you will get certainly some amount of rejections. So you can give that as a proof, or you can always send the email details that you have sent to someone as a proof. There are many other expenses, but those are again depending on individual cases. For example, if someone moved from one city to another, and in between they got married, and then their tax class changed, then their expenses changed. So there are so many different things that people can claim, but again, it depends on each and every single individual. How can we claim all of these things? Are all of the receipts required? So when you submit a tax return, prior to 2019, you had to submit all of the receipts and invoices for the tax return along with the claims. But since 2019, you do not have to submit the receipts or any invoices for the claims. So for example, if someone said, okay, I have 1,000 euros worth of laptop, 500 euros worth of a mobile phone, and they send the tax return, they can do so without submitting an invoice. Only when the tax office asks for a claim or asks for a receipt, then you'll have to submit it. And generally speaking, the tax office only asks for receipts for really higher amounts of expenses shown. So if you have a lot of expenses, you simply submit each and everything, and pardon me, when the finance arm asks for a proof of specific thing, you can either submit the proof, or if you do not have the proof, the finance app will simply ignore that request. So here you do not have to provide the receipts. So what you can do to keep all of the receipts is you can use an expense management app to keep all of your proof. What I do is I use an app called Get Sorted, and I use Notion. I put all of the expenses that I have in, and I take a picture and I put it in Notion with a specific tag so that I'm able to keep all of these expenses. What you can do also is use an app called Evernote, or simply take a photo of your invoice and WhatsApp yourself, or whatever you can think of in terms of keeping your receipts. You can also keep a physical file with yourself, but as a student it generally takes a lot of space. So again, it depends on how you want to handle your expenses. How can one submit a tax return? There are multiple options. There are free ones and paid ones. The best, in my opinion, is Elster. This is a platform from the government. This is free of cost, and it is the most extensive software that you can find. Most of the tax consultants use this software if they do not use a physical paper form, but usually speaking, everyone is using this Elster form if they are a professional. You can also submit a paper form in the finance app. This is also good. However, in the case of Elster and the finance app option, both of these are in German. So you will need to know very good German in order to fill your tax return with these two softwares, or these two forms of tax returns. Now, on top of that, there are paid options. For example, web apps like WunderTax, TaxFix, and many others. And then there are softwares like you can get a CD from Aldi by the end of the year for 5 to 7 euros. There's also Viso software that's between 25 to 30 euros, Quick Fix, and many others. Then you also have a tax consultant. Now, is using a paid service worth it? Well, it depends. If you are someone who has lesser amount of expenses and you have really good German, then I would recommend that you do it with Elster or by a physical form. If you have a very bad German, or if you have very or medium to very complex expenses, then it's recommended that you either use a web app or a tax consultant. So using a paid option is also considered as an expense. So if you use a tax consultant who takes a fee of, let's assume, 200 euros, you can put this 200 euros as an expense in the next year's tax return. So as I mentioned, Elster is the best option for someone who has good German language skills. You can always use the Google Translate option, but the official language of many words changes with the Google Translate option. From personal experience, I can say that it can be very overwhelming. When I first submitted my tax return in 2017 using Elster, it took me a couple of weeks just to look into the software platform, and even with this platform, it was very difficult for me to understand it. So if you have good German skills, please do so. Otherwise, you can use online softwares like WunderTax and many others. If you want to use WunderTax software, I have a video on my channel which is extensive in detail, where I share every single step of how you can submit a tax return. And if you use this link, you can get a discount, but obviously if you want, you can use any of the other softwares that are available. So how can you maximize your tax returns? As I said, keep invoice of every single expense that you have for your work and your studies. Learn about claimable expenses as you are learning here in a seminar or webinar, or talk to your friends. Proof is not required, as I mentioned before. And when should you submit a tax return? This is a very important thing. Should you do it after a job, after 1 year? When should you do it? Previously, what I was thinking, or what my opinion was, that you should do it after 1 year of doing your full-time job. However, since last couple of years, my opinion has changed. what I say right now is that you should submit it every single year. So in 2023, you do your taxes for previous years. 24, you do the tax return for this year. Because in order to effectively use the Verlustvortrag or the tax carry forward loss statement, you have to file a tax return, wait 6 to 8 weeks for the a response from the Finanzamt, then take this loss certificate, add it in the next year's tax return, and so on and so forth. So if someone has to submit 4 years of tax returns, they will have to wait up to, let's say, 6 to 7 months just to be able to fulfill all of the requirements of the 4 years. So what I say is submit a tax return as soon as you can. In this video, I share my step-by-step process of how to submit a tax return. Don't forget to share this video with your friends so they can also get help on a very difficult topic like tax return as a student in Germany. So thanks for watching, bleib gesund, and I'll see you in this video.